This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
Up All Night with Dotun Adebayo.
The Iranian opposition leader Mir Hussein Mousavi has said that he's prepared to die for the cause of reform in his country. It was his first comment since the death of his nephew and other anti-government protesters earlier on in the week. In a statement posted on his website, Mr. Mousavi also set out a 5-stage solution to the crisis sparked by June's disputed elections. But at Friday prayers in Tehran, Ayatollah Ahmad Jannati, who's a staunch supporter of President Ahmadinejad, said the protesters were in league with Iran's enemies and he attacked officials who failed to denounce them. Earlier, I spoke to Potkin Azarmehr, who runs what he calls a blog for secular pro-democracy activists in and outside Iran.
To understand why this statement was made, we have to understand what's going on in Iran today after the events of Sunday. What the rumour underground is that the Supreme Leader's second son, Mujtaba, who is a real hardliner, sort of like Iran's equivalent of Taliban, has now had enough and has taken over and is in direct command of the repression. And the society seems to have become very much polarised now. Before Sunday, you had the Green Movement on one side, you had the supporters of the Ahmadinejad and the Supreme Leader on one side, and then you had people who were sort of like supporters of the Supreme Leader, weren't really supporters of the Green Movement, but at the same time they criticised Ahmadinejad as well. And it seems that after Mujtaba, if this rumour is correct, has taken over, the whole situation has now become very much more polarised. The sort of people that didn't, that criticised Ahmadinejad but went really with the Green Movement, they have also come out making very fiery speeches, and it looks like that they're at a point where they have no other solutions but to unleash the very last of their deadly arsenal against the people. So in that context of this sort of like looming imminent bloodbath, Mousavi has come up with these 5 points. He's made his position very clear in terms of, he's not scared of death. He says, I have no fear to be one of the martyrs that the people of Iran have given to defend their dignity. And then he's come up with 5 very, very, very reasonable points. And if any one of those points is taken up, then it's progress and it will ease the tension.
Yeah, but that's not likely to happen, particularly when you consider that people like Ayatollah Ahmad Jannati is saying at Friday prayers, people like you, people like Mousavi, are in league with Iran's enemies.
Well, you took the words out of my mouth. I mean, the statement is actually a double-edged sword. If you look at the possible outcomes, either they will accept these 5 points, or at least 1 or 2 of them, or as I expect, and you've just said, the very likelihood is that they will not accept any of it because these people cannot tolerate any criticism. They think they represent God on earth, and if you criticise the government policy or anything like that, they accuse you of criticising God. So the likelihood is that they're not going to accept any of these 5 points. But that in itself, has set the agenda. Whatever happens next, people will know. This was the battleground. There's one man with 5 very, very reasonable statements. He's not asking for revenge. He's not asking for his supporters to show any violence. He's not inciting the crowds or anything. He's making 5 very, very reasonable points. And if they don't accept this, and if they go for the bloodbath, well, then they've shown their true nature to the world. So it's a double-edged sword. And I think whatever happens, the Green Movement is the winner.
You keep saying...
At least a moral victory.
You keep saying bloodbath, Potkin. Is that the only option, then?
Well, I mean, it's not something that I'm wishing for. I'm just going by, what the ruling elite, the speeches of the ruling elites have pointed to. Today, just earlier today, I was listening to this speech by one of these hardline clerics, Ayatollah Hayari, and, it was just frightening to listen to, even sitting in London. I mean, this guy was saying, that you shouldn't even arrest protesters, you shouldn't even prosecute protesters. These are enemies of God, and you should kill them like we did in the 80s. I mean, the language is just unbelievable.
What kind of actual support does Mousavi have on the streets of Iran?
Well, I mean, I think the events on Sunday showed that, the support is very, very widespread.
Just
spread.
remind us, what were the events on Sunday?
Well, Sunday was the Ashura, is the symbolic day of uprising against tyranny, and the whole of Iran erupted. I mean, we had protests in major cities, in smaller towns, in villages, and the repressive forces were spread so thin that in some instances the people actually managed to overcome the security forces. We got a lot of footage where the riot guards, the special riot guards, are very, very vicious special units that have the armoured clothes and the helmets on the motorbikes. You know, they were cornered by the people. And yet, I mean, to the credit of the noble people of Iran, after all they've suffered, they still haven't, you know, mutilated these repressive forces when they got hold of them or anything. You know, they still treated them amicably. You know, all they were saying was like, you know, why are you killing us? We are your own people. And it was really touching to see these footages where, you know, they've cornered some of these repressive forces.
Sure, but that's not necessarily support for Mousavi, though, is it?
Well, I mean, the Green Movement is a noblest movement. It has many leaders, and Mousavi is a prominent leader of this Green Movement. I mean, the chants of Ya Hussein, Mir Hussein. I mean, I don't know how understandable these chants are to people outside Iran, but you know, they're nothing other than support for Mousavi. And credit to him, he hasn't shown any compromise despite all the difficulties he's had. He's been under lots of pressure. His own life has been in danger. His nephew was martyred on Sunday. He was killed by the newly formed death squad, which is another thing that I should have mentioned when I was saying about the atmosphere becoming very, very fearful for a bloodbath. His wife's brother has been sentenced to prison. So credit to him, despite all these pressures that he's been under, he's standing by the people of Iran, and I think the majority of people do support him.
And clearly, more protests are planned. When is the next stage of this drama going to unfold?
Well, I mean, so far the tactics has been, it was very like after the Supreme Leader's deadly speech after the elections, where he said anyone that comes on the streets will be responsible for their own lives. And then we had a sort of like a mini bloodbath, if you like. I'm not sure if that's an appropriate phrase to use. And then normally what happens in these cases, the Green Movement steps back a little bit, tries to recuperate, and then sort of like uses other forms of protest, like writing slogans on banknotes or chanting rooftop protest chants at night, or various other forms of protest other than just actually coming on the streets, until the situation eases a bit and an opportunity comes for another rally. Now, the next significant date in the calendar is the 40th day after Ashura, which in Shiite religion, the 40th day after death is again another holy landmark in the calendar. So there could be some protest then. But,
about 4 weeks' time, then. Just on another note, Potkin, I know through your blog that you have contact with so many people inside Iran. What are they saying about the suggestion that Iran was is implicated in the hostage-taking of British citizens in Iraq?
To be honest with you, with the Iranian people, that doesn't come as much of a surprise. You know, we are aware that this Messianic junta is interfering in Iraq, is interfering in Afghanistan. This is just like normal news for us. So it may have been somewhat of a shock to the British public, but we sort of like shrug our shoulders and say, well, you know, are they surprised? Do they not know about this?
That's the Iranian blogger Potkin Azarmehr.